Hello and good morning. Thanks for joining me again today for day 3 of Movement and Mindfulness. So over the past couple of days, we've been beginning to look at the breath to begin with, the first part of our movement session together. So we've already talked about the sort of how the breath can be three-dimensional and sounding similar to a wave crashing on a beach. And then yesterday we looked at how our breath can really deeply affect the organs situated in this region of our body. So we were talking about expanding into the belly with that breath to try to make the breath a little bit bigger, try to make that space around the organs a little bit more expansive to give them some room and allow them to move around a little bit easier. So you might be wondering why I spend so much time kind of thinking about these things, the anatomy and the functionality of the breath. But it's because I really deeply believe that when we improve our mind-body connection, we improve the relationship that we have with our own bodies, with our own selves, and then we can start to improve our relationship with other people and start to take some more sort of control and sort of have more clarity around how we want our lives to look. So this is why I spend a lot of time thinking about those things and explaining them to the people that I work with, explaining them to you. So today I wanted to talk about the diaphragm, because this is a really important muscle that is involved with our breath. And we're talking about the diaphragm next because it's a muscle that sits right on top of where our organs are situated. And it's actually helping to regulate the pressure that's happening in the abdominal area, so the intra-abdominal pressure, each time that we take a breath. And a lot of people don't even realize that this muscle is there and how cool it is. I think it's so cool. It's a muscle that's connected right along the edge of the bottom rib. So the bottom of the rib cage, all the way around. You can even feel it for yourself, starting from the breastbone and kind of working your fingers around those bottom ribs and around to the back of the body. So this is where your diaphragm connects onto. We're gonna just do a little exercise that kind of helps you to really embody what the diaphragm does as you're breathing, taking each breath. So you're going to connect your fingers together and place them right at the base of the breastbone, elbows nice and heavy. Before we do this exercise, just closing the eyes for a moment and taking a moment to listen to your breath and kind of listen to your body and your thoughts, just letting them settle for a moment. So take a couple of breaths here, in through the nose and out. Maybe with your hands resting where they are, you can feel a little bit of your heartbeat. You can feel whether your breath is sort of shallow or deep today. I'm just noticing these things. And then we're going to start to think about the diaphragm and how it moves. So your hands are representative of this muscle, and every time that you breathe in, you're going to think about how the diaphragm actually floats down to allow all the oxygen into your lungs. So you're going to press your hands down and feel your palms expanding. And then as you exhale, the diaphragm floats up, pressing the oxygen out of the lungs. And so that's when you bring your hands back into a little dome. So you're breathing in, and then you're exhaling. Deep breath in, and exhaling. And just keep going with that. So you're breathing in and then out. And you're thinking about actually this part of your arm actually represents your diaphragm as well. And these elbows represent the tips of your rib cage going out as you breathe in and then squeezing back together as you exhale to really get every atom of oxygen out of your lungs. So really a nice little illustration to let your brain kind of remember the functionality of the body, to get this really deep mind-body connection happening. Now I notice for myself that I really like to get my shoulders involved with this movement. So see what happens when you just allow the shoulders to kind of relax and let the breath come a little bit deeper into the body. Allowing the diaphragm to float down. As you breathe in and then exhaling, feel how it floats back up, the ribs draw back together. Just a couple more breaths like that. And then we're just going to think about all these different ways that we can move around the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is, again, it rests over these organs. So we can think about how you can actually rotate the diaphragm over the top of the organs. And it's slipping and sliding around as you do this little bit of rotational movement, just moving side to side. You can move over the top of your diaphragm. It can move forward, and you're slipping forward over your organs, or you can move the diaphragm back and actually feel how when you lift the heart space, you're lifting up and away from your diaphragm as it rests there. So let's go over that again. You have rotation, you have a forward bend, and then you've got backwards. We call this extension. You're really expanding and extending your body as you kind of lift up and out of the diaphragm. So this is going to inform our movement today. Before we move into that movement, just kind of feel for yourself how just that little exercise has influenced your breath. See if you can now take the breath a little bit deeper into the organs, into the diaphragm working. Morning Rod, I see you there. And then let's just come to lying on your back. So you're going to be lying down and just going to let your arms start to come up towards the ceiling. And you're going to think about your diaphragm expanding a little bit more. And then we're going to start to take the arms up and over the head. And I want you to think about, just going to scoot myself away from my plant, the diaphragm kind of staying down and connected to the floor at the back of the body as your arms come up and over. So what might be nice is to take a big deep breath in before you go anywhere. And then exhale, think about the diaphragm just connecting to the mat at the back of the body as your arms come up and over the head. Just doing that a few more times. So inhaling and then exhaling. Diaphragm sinks down towards the mat as your arms come up and over. We'll do that one last time. And then we're going to interlace those fingers together and bring them back behind the back of the head. So we're going to start this little movement forward over the diaphragm. So remembering where the diaphragm is in the body. Take a big deep breath in. Got your head really supported by your arms. And as you exhale, you're just going to start to lift the head, neck, and shoulders to come and look between your knees. And then inhaling down. So we're starting this movement we're lifting the diaphragm up and over those organs as you come forward with your upper body. Nice big deep breath, and then exhaling and inhaling to come back down. We'll do that one more time. We're going to stay here for a moment and just allow for a couple of breaths to see if we can really expand into the diaphragm area. Just let your head relax into your hands. And then begin to slowly lower back down and release the head. You're going to take your arms a little bit wider here onto the mat. Bring your legs all the way together, and we'll go into a little bit of that rotation. So with your legs connected together, you're going to take your legs over to one side, not too far because we want your shoulders to stay heavy on the mat. Take a big deep breath in here. Really feel how you're expanding into the side of the body here. And then as you exhale, let your diaphragm come back down to the floor first. Feel how your legs can just follow over to the other side. I quite like to let my head look in the opposite direction to where my knees are going. Diaphragm comes down to the floor first, our hips, and then the knees follow. Just doing that a couple of times to each side. Keeping this movement as big or as small as feels good for you. And do that one more time to each side. And then we're going to go ahead and roll over onto the belly. So you can use your kind of rotation to do that, coming up and over to lie onto your front, with your head just resting onto your hands again. So really allowing your neck muscles to release. Look towards the camera so you can still hear me, but I want you to fully rest your head down and feel as comfortable as you can here so that you can really connect into that connection that the diaphragm is making to the mat in front of you. Starting to take some really big, deep breaths as you're lying here now on your belly, and feeling your diaphragm doing that same movement that we thought about at the beginning. It's floating up and it's floating down as you're lying here, even in this relationship to gravity. So resting your head down, you're going to start to allow this movement of the diaphragm to move your body, your upper body up and down. So as you're breathing in, feel how the diaphragm floats down, and that could just take your head away from your hands. It's like almost an effortless movement. And then as you exhale, just feel how the diaphragm floats back up and you just naturally come down. So you're breathing in and then you're exhaling. Remembering how we're moving the diaphragm around those organs, allowing the breath to just really naturally and easily float you up and down. A bit like a parachute, a really colorful parachute moving with the air floating in and floating out. Just doing that one more time. And then we're going to slide the hands into a more goalpost position here. So elbows in line with your shoulders or just slightly below if that feels better for you. And you're just going to let your head hover here away from the mat just a little bit. And we're going to start to really feel how the diaphragm is keeping you a little bit lifted here. And then just have a little look over to your right and left hands. And we're just going to have a little lift of the forearm away from the floor. So you're just lifting both forearms and then placing them back down. And just doing that a couple of times, making sure your wrists aren't bending. Just taking a look to keep those wrists in line with the forearm. And then we're going to lift the forearm and lift the elbow up. So you're supporting yourself with your diaphragm nice and heavy, and just a little bit of a lift through your head while you do this little movement through the arms. Just doing that a couple of times. Still breathing those lovely deep breaths. And then we're going to keep the forearms lifted, keep the elbows lifted, and see if we can lift up away from the mat with the chest just a little bit, keeping that diaphragm heavy and connected to the floor. And then coming back down, let the elbows come back down, let the hands come back down. I'm going to do that a few times. Forearms first, and then the elbows lift, and then we lift up through the chest. And then you lower the chest back down, lower the elbows back down, lower the hands back down. Let's do that twice more. Feel where you naturally want to lift the chest up. For me, it's with the inhale and then coming back down. Last time like that. And then just allow the arms to rest down. Press yourself back into child's pose. Nice wide knees so that you can just let your belly and everything hang down between your knees and have a lovely stretch out through the lower back, through the back of the body. Taking some lovely deep breaths. Again, right into the belly so that you can just feel like that area can completely relax, that your diaphragm can have a little stretch out here from your fingertips all the way down to your tail. And then from here, just going to start to walk the hands over to the right hand side. So you're taking your hands over to the right. You can even bring that left hand over to meet the right hand. Just let your head hang down right in the center of your arms and take a few lovely deep breaths into the left side of the body. So you can even think about this left sitting bone getting nice and heavy as you are stretching over to this side. Nice big deep breaths in and out. We can think we're really expanding the diaphragm open on this side of the body. And then walking the hands back to the center, we'll go over to the other side. Left hand coming over and letting the right hand come to meet it now. Feel how you can stretch out through the right hand, through the right side of the diaphragm now. And just settling down a little bit deeper towards the floor with this one. And then walking the hands right back to the center and coming back up to come to seated once again. So lastly here, we're just going to revisit that rotation aspect of how the diaphragm can move, and just start to kind of move around a little bit, because you want to feel and just notice where your gaze ends up on either side. Maybe come around, pick a point on the wall, and just notice one spot on the wall that you see in your eye distance, and then come back to the center and do the same thing on the other side. So just notice a point on the wall that's at the end point where you end up there. And then we're just going to think about that diaphragm again. And this time I'm going to ask you to move from your diaphragm first, coming around, and then begin to move the upper ribs and shoulders, and then bring your gaze around. And just notice how much farther around you can come into this rotation when you're moving from your diaphragm first. And then your gaze, your shoulders, your ribs, and diaphragm come back. So we're going to rotate around to the other side, moving from the diaphragm first, then the ribs, the shoulders, and the gaze. You can even use your hands to help you have a little bit more of a twist, not forcing anything, but just feeling that you can find a bit more range. And then coming back to center. I'll just do that a few times to each side, moving diaphragm first, shoulders, and then gaze. Gaze comes back, shoulders come back, and you're back to the center. And over to the other side, diaphragm, ribs, gaze, and then gaze, shoulders, and the diaphragm. So hopefully now you can just find a place to sit a little bit more comfortably. We're going to move into the meditation part of the session. So again, if you like to have a few cushions, I always have mine nearby so that I can place a few under my knees, take some of the pressure off my hips. You can place a few underneath your bum if that feels more comfortable for you. And now that we've been kind of thinking about the area here of the organs and the diaphragm, just see if you can really position yourself nicely to align the head and the shoulders over that area so that they can just rest and you can feel like you can take some deep breaths without too much trouble. So just closing the eyes here, we're going to start to breathe in and out through the nose, if that's comfortable for you. We're just allowing the thoughts to settle now. So we've done a little bit of movement, we've done a little bit of breathing exercises. So we're just now really giving the mind a chance to settle and to clear before the day ahead. So there might be a lot going on for you today. We're just going to give your mind a little holiday from all of the obligations and all of the distractions that usually come along to take our attention off of our bodies and away from how we're feeling and checking in with ourselves. So breathing in and out through the nose. And we're going to do a little body scan again through the front of the body, starting at the crown of the head, working your way down through the face, just checking in, noticing any sensations through the front of the face, the nose, the mouth, the front of the neck, and the shoulders, the fronts of the arms, the elbows, the forearms and the hands, noticing any sensations, any pain, heaviness, lightness, just checking in with the front of your body. Down through the chest, past the diaphragm, the organs, into the front of the pelvis, the thighs, the knees, the lower legs, and the feet. So really just checking in with yourself. Noticing any sensations, noticing any changes from one part of the body to the next. And then just bringing the awareness back to the breath. And we'll start to count the breath. So for the next 5 minutes, you're going to see if you can sit in silence, counting your own breaths. Starting with 1 so you'll take a breath in, you'll reach the top of the breath and you'll label that breath as 1. And exhale, and then breathing in. At the top of that breath, you'll label that breath as 2, and then exhale. And you're going to work your way all the way up to 10, counting your 10 breaths, and then start over and go back to 1. because we don't want your mind to get too distracted trying to count up to 100 or something like that. You always want to come back to your first round, your first number after you reach 10. So for the next 5 minutes, seeing if you can keep your concentration and your mind on counting your breaths, starting now. And just starting to bring your awareness back into the space. So maybe moving your fingers, feeling the textures of the air, your trousers, moving your wrists around, and then just opening the eyes. So how was that for you? I know that for me it was quite a challenge to sit for any measure of time in silence without letting my thoughts just get away from me, um, being distracted. But it's really important to just give yourself some time to take a break from all of the busyness of our lives, especially in these times when we're kind of maybe limited in the things that we can do outside of the home. Um, it's nice to just take a little break from that. So hopefully hopefully that was good for you. Let me know about any of your experiences in the comments, and I'll see you back here tomorrow, 7:30, for some more movement and mindfulness. Thanks, guys. Bye.